But Germany has had a difficult time because the East Germans are used to living under communism, and after 45 years under communism, they expect to have everything handed to them. They expect to have a free meal if they want it. And the result is the more industrious West Germans have had a hard time convincing them, hey, you people need to get to work and work as hard as we do. Again, Germany is still struggling, trying to bridge the gap and the resentments that go on between them. They've gone from one government to another. They eventually abandoned their conservative party, the Christian Democrats, for a more socialistic party. And as they became, I mean, after all, 1/4 of them grown up under communism. So as they became more socialistic, you know what I'm about to say, their economic output declined. And that's where we are right now with Germany. They're now led by a female chancellor, and she's pushing for health care reform and energy policies. And we'll talk more about the European Union later, but Germany is now considered the head of the European Union, such as it is. All right, moving on from Germany to Great Britain. Great Britain initially embraced socialism, and they told the world, now we're going to make this thing work. The problem with socialism before was it was led by men like Lenin and Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini, and oh no, they were bad men. But we got some really good men leading our country. And true, Great Britain elected some of the most morally upright men to lead them that had ever been elected by a nation. Really good men. And there was a slogan on, let's all pitch in for socialism. Let's work extra hard. We're going to prove to the world that socialism can work. And they actually made it, I mean, a lot of them made an honest attempt. They gave free health care to everybody. No, it doesn't come out of your pockets. Now, let me tell you something about health care. President Harry Truman was our first president to try to get health care in this country. And this was about the same time that Britain passed health care laws. Canada has health care. Britain has health care. And most of Europe now has health care. And the United States now does. But I want to say this. If President Harry Truman's health care bill had been passed in 1948, our country would be bankrupt today. Why is that? Because health care at that time cost so little. Today's health care is extremely expensive. Now, the main reason for the extreme expense is health care is better. But I mean, look at 1948 health care standards. By today's standards, it's considered primitive. Today, I mean, we have all kinds of machinery. I mean, most everything that we have today in our hospitals was not available in 1948. Our doctors are more knowledgeable. But the machines that the hospitals have cost a whole lot of money that we all have to chip in and pay for. And the result is, I mean, it's a good thing, I think, for our country that Harry Truman's health care bill did not pass. Kennedy tried to get one up. He did, and he couldn't pass his legislation. Johnson at least got medical care for the aged. And I want to tell you something about Medicare, for those of you who haven't heard. It's broke, folk. It's bankrupt. It would be bankrupt if it weren't for the fact it's backed up by the United States government. Now, a couple of you nodding your heads like you've heard this before. I'm wondering, how many of you have heard that Medicare is bankrupt? I mean, okay, most of the hand go up. I hope you're being honest. I mean, you see your neighbor's hand go up, your hand might too. I mean, but, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a well-known fact. Some of you from abroad might say, I don't care. Yes?
Some states are already talking about cutting people off. I know my home state in Wisconsin, they're cutting people already because it's just...
They don't have the money for it. Terrible. Now, all right, now, in about 2 months, folks, I'm eligible to go on Medicare. I mean, I don't care how much you know about my age. I turned 65 on June 10th, and I'm eligible for Medicare. And guess what? I'm going to be, I know I'm leaning on a system that's just about to go under. And the reason I can stand here now is because I'm collecting Social Security, and I think all of my students I've had, at least they claim they know, that Social Security is about to go. It's going to be bankrupt in a few years, before most of you reach the age to where you can collect it. If that doesn't scale, what does, I mean, I may live long enough to where I can collect it. My wife can collect it after me, but after that, something else about Social Security that I think most of my people say that they know. The money that you're paying in now is not being saved for you. It's being used to pay me. Ah, yeah, some of you already heard this. Most of you, you've heard this before.
It's partially why it's going bankrupt.
It says, what's that?
There's more of you than there are of us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. This is because, all right, I'm going to tell you. We aborted 40 million of our babies. And we don't have enough young people. Older people have always, throughout time, been supported by the younger ones. And this generation is no exception. And we've aborted 1/4 to 1/3 of our babies. And the result is we don't have enough young people to support those of us who are older. Social Security, unless something drastic is done, will not be solved.
I don't feel like you can blame.
What's that?
It's not that.
What's that?
You said that 1/3 or something.
You have 1/3 to 1/4 of pregnancies end in abortion.
But I don't feel like you can just blame it all on abortion as far as why.
Abortion and birth control and combine. We have not. Well, we're going to talk about this. We're not producing enough babies to keep the population up.
Well,
And this applies.
Maybe you're like, the older generation produced too many people for us to support. Like, that is a possibility.
If we hadn't produced them, we'd have lost World War II. Where the result would be enslaved right now. Yes.
Are we on the biggest decline of people being born in America, like ever, right now? Just worldwide.
Well, it's okay. Listen, we're going to talk about this. This is in a book. It's a worldwide phenomenon, and France was. I meant to say that France was especially hard hit. They say that in France, an average 6-year-old starting to school at 6 will be seeing other kids his age for the first time. He grew up. He has no brothers and sisters. He has no cousins. So he has no relatives, and he lives in isolation at home for no kids in the neighborhood to play with. And finally, he's transported to school, where he finally meets other children his age. This is not unheard of, because they are not. And I've heard a lot of governments in the world are paying women to have children because the population is declining fast, and they realize, hey, unless we start producing children, we're going to all of us be dead of old age. Except some people. And I'll call them a name. I don't mean in any way to be critical of these people, but the Muslim women are producing 8 babies on average per woman. If any of you haven't heard that, you've heard it now.
But also,
All right, one of you nodding your head. All right, yeah.
producing kids, you have to have money. And right now, we don't have money to have kids.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'll tell you something. I mean, death is still death.
Right.
And I mean dying without producing children. I mean, every one of us dies. But if all of us decide to die without children, we're gone. I mean, that's a different kind of death. And I know I heard a talk show host say it's a crime for a parent to bring a child into the world they can't support. I've got 2 things to say. Number 1, you might be able to support it today, but how do you know you can support it tomorrow? Economics can change. And number 2, you might bring a child into the world today and become rich tomorrow. You just don't know. And the world is an uncertain place, and there's no guarantee that you're going to have the money to support the children you bring into the world, if you bring any in. It's, to me, lack of money. Well, we can't use any excuses, folks. Lack of money is no excuse, and again, we can't use any excuses. All right, anybody else? Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of a catch-22 too, because it seems like for the people that cannot afford the children, they're having the most children.
Yeah, it's
So the
always
system-
been that way. All right, listen, I'll tell you something. All right,
The system
hey,
is still
folks,
carrying these children.
I have told you that I grew up in poverty. I'm the oldest of 7 children. My grandmother had 10 children, and she said there was always victuals on the table for every one of them. They all grew up in poverty. The poorer people have the most, and always, all down through history, when the civilized clash with the uncivilized people, except for the case now when the Europeans clash with the Americans, that was an exception. When the civilized clash with the uncivilized, who wins? The uncivilized win. The uncivilized win because they have the most numbers. Now, in the case of the American Indian women did not want to have more than 1 baby per woman. And the result was their population declined. Then the Europeans came, and the European women were having 8 or 10 babies per child at that time. In addition, more European immigrants were coming over. The Indians were hopelessly outnumbered. Again, persons who limit their population wind up being conquered by their enemies. Folk, I'm on the record and I say that. If that offends any of you, I'm really sorry. Yeah.
Back to the Social Security thing, I'm just curious. You said that the problem is that there aren't enough young people to support the older
The older
generation.
people, yes.
But isn't the problem also, I'm not 100% sure of this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the problem also the fact that for so long, the money sat there and it wasn't being used, and so the government was like, well, we can just kind of borrow some and then put it back later, and then they didn't put it back.
I don't know what instant you're talking about, because Social Security was being paid off from the time it was started in the 1930s, and it's been a continuous circulation. The idea was that the money was
No, that's
supposed to
what I'm
be
asking. So like the
saved.
money's never been touched.
What about the Social Security that the baby boomers paid? They didn't. They didn't?
The Social Security, all right, here's the thing, let me tell you. The Social Security was paid out in the beginning. And it was supposed to be saved for you. In other words, this is my money. It is not being saved. It's being spent on in other words, the money you're paying in Social Security now is being not saved for you. It's being spent on me at the moment. It's not being saved. It's not being held. So it's not just sitting there untouched. Now there is a retirement fund, 401ks. Those are sitting there supposedly drawing interest or drawing money to be available for you later. The difference between 401k and Social Security is 401k money can be given to your heirs.
Yeah.
Social Security money cannot be passed on to your heirs. Now, granted, if I were to die today, my wife would collect it until the day she died. My mother is still collecting Social Security from my dad, even though my mother never worked outside the home, and I say this with all respect. But she's collecting Dad's retirement and Dad's Social Security and will till the day she dies. But now, I will never get any of Dad's Social Security money because it's not inheritable.
What about his retirement?
The retirement money is retirement money is your money, and you can pass it on to your heirs. That's different. That money is supposed to sit there. That money is actually being saved for you. And I'm going to have to close that.
There's also the issue of so much of the money, public tax money, whatever, that's being put into the system.
Yeah.
I don't think we deal with this matter of wasteful spending enough either. I mean, money is somewhere in there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had an experience yesterday
that is government
where
for you.
I thought it was just a gross
Space exploration.
misappropriation of public funds.
No, I'm a space enthusiast, but I do think space would be better off if it were done by private firms or people who decide, hey, I want to support my space program, pull out money from their own wallets and give to it voluntarily.
But then there were no space.
It's also to have the
It's what?
budget given to Pentagon and Jurassic Park.
But yeah,
That
but,
they give outrageous amounts of money.
but well, anything that gets the government involved is going to wind up involving a huge bureaucray.
Right, that's the problem.
With
The
a
government gets
whole
involved.
lot of waste. All right, I've got to close here. Oh yeah, I'll leave this up for the moment. All right. Make a long story short, folks, Great Britain's experiment with socialism failed just like the others have. But I'll get to that next time.